Wednesday morning, and thank you for joining us here for a live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. My name is Eugene Daniel, and I am joined by my producer here, Sarah Calloway. And we have a guest already in studio, and I'm going to introduce him in just a moment. But first, we do want to let you know we're monitoring a few things already so far at the top of our stream here. Both Republicans and Democrats in our nation's capital are expected to hold press conferences this morning. When those start and as they go, we will go to them in the moment. And actually, right now, Sarah, I know this is a little bit off of our plan starting off, but can we go to News 1, Channel 1? Because in this moment, we are seeing on our big board, it looks like there is some form of rescue that is taking place. This is in Phoenix right now. This is the Phoenix Echo Canyon. There's a hiker apparently in that area that has been in a bit of a predicament, and we looks like we have a helicopter that is in the area, hopefully there to rescue and get this person to safety. I just noticed it when I looked over to the left there, Sarah, so wanted to go to it right away. We don't have a lot of information on it right now, but it had popped up and we saw it here in our feed and wanted to show you this as it took place in real time. And that is what we do here for Live Impact News. As things pop on our big board or we see breaking news coming to our system, we want to take you to it right away as it is happening. And I'm sure as we get more information about this, maybe we can peek back in at a certain point and I can share with you hopefully a positive update from this situation. Again, what we know right now is that this is some form of hiker rescue that is taking place. You are watching the very moment it looks like a helicopter is going into the area where this person may be stuck. And you know what? We'll keep on it for right now because it looks like they're getting into position, Sarah, here. And is this the individual there that is caught? I want to be sure that things are okay here at the moment. Okay, again, we don't have a lot of information, but you see there at the bottom, Sarah, of the canyon there seems to be some form of flag or sheet maybe that was used to indicate where this individual could be. That looks like a marker at the moment, but what I'm not seeing is movement right now. So I'm getting a little nervous on that standpoint. But again, this is a live feed that is coming into us from Phoenix as they are. Okay, it looks like the person is seated. Okay, they are sitting down right now. Okay, good. They are there. And I assume they were the ones, again, I'm making an assumption, so I want to put that out there. We have not verified this fact. But you can see it looks like some form of flag or something that they've been able to put up so that their position can be known. Okay, I just saw the movement of a head turn to the right there, so I'm good to go with that too. Not every day that you see something like this in the moment, Sarah, and see if we can find some more information about how long this person has been up there. Again, this was not necessarily our scheduled start to this show, but we saw that. I saw it and was like, let's go to it. So again, you're watching live right now a rescue mission that is taking place, I believe, in Phoenix. There for a hiker in the area. I am currently looking up a little bit more information so I can bring it to you as I speak. Here we go. So looking at our ABC affiliate in the Phoenix area, here's some information that we have right now that they have been working to reach this hiker who was stuck on this trail overnight. Crews were first called to the scene around 8:15 last night on reports of a hiker who had gotten stuck at the top of a mountain. Okay, the hiker was initially seen by the Phoenix Police Department helicopter that was just doing routine flights in the area. Talk about being in the right place at the right time for this person who's up there. You can tell just from the positioning that the hiker is in a very difficult portion of the trail. It's on top of one of the largest boulders there for this particular area. They call it the Camelback Mountains Echo Canyon Trail. Not sure when the person began their hike into that area, but you can imagine, Sarah, if this was if they kind of got this report last night around 8. I'm not too familiar with when things get dark in the Phoenix area. Obviously we're all the way on the other side on the coast here in Virginia, but I can imagine if it were dark, it probably would have caused some challenges for anybody who wants to do a rescue at that time. Just looking at some of the reports we have here. Okay, I'm right. Crews decided because of the how dark it was to delay the operation for at least a few hours, but they were able to get drones to get that hiker blankets, water, and a cell phone while they await this rescue. So again, right now, what you're seeing is the updated moments in which we just saw a helicopter around this area. That right there is the hiker who has been stuck at least since sometime yesterday, likely last night. All right, this is live footage, live video there out of Phoenix, Arizona. Okay, we're going to continue to monitor and watch that as they are clearly waiting. I don't know what it is that they need to see in order to feel good about going into getting him, or what they will need to do. But in the moment, hopefully that the crews there in that Phoenix area are able to keep that shot up, and we will kind of monitor that. And as soon as they go in for the actual rescue, hopefully we can come back to it in that time. Okay, we told you that we were also watching for two press conferences taking place in Washington, D.C., still awaiting for Republicans and Democrats to speak this morning, as there are a few topics on hand that are definitely of importance today. But right now, Sarah, let's do this and just peek our heads into News 1 Channel 2, where we do have some form of press conference taking place right now with Health Secretary JFK Jr. on a Make America Healthy Again campaign. We just want to listen in to see what they are pushing in at this moment, just for a few moments here. We do have them at the podium, and we'll listen in just for a little bit, and then after that, I will bring in our guest here for this morning to talk about our nation's economy. So if we're good to go with that, Sarah, let's go ahead and peek our heads in to this press conference taking place with Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Early next year, so in a couple of weeks. Federal nutrition advice must be sound, simple, and clear. These guidelines will prioritize whole, healthy, and nutritious foods, such as whole fat dairy, fruits, vegetables, and meats, and suggest limiting highly processed foods and those high in sugar. President Trump and my colleagues, led by Secretary Kennedy on the MAHA Commission, know our current health outcomes, especially for our children, are unsustainable, and that American agriculture and our agencies are at the heart of that solution. And what an honor it is. We're doing things a little bit differently than typical Washington, D.C. Since our confirmation, we have encouraged the states to think differently and creatively as our laboratories of innovation about how to solve the many health issues facing America. So that was a really exciting thing to do. We just finished signing several of those SNAP waivers, and we can take questions on that. Dr. Oz will talk a little bit about that, as Secretary Kennedy will. But really today is about the next step in making America healthy again, in addition to those waivers, and that is talking about regenerative agriculture. Regenerative agriculture is a conservation management approach that emphasizes natural resources through improved soil health, water management, and natural vitality for the productivity and prosperity of American agriculture and all of our communities. Today, we are launching a new Farmer First regenerative agriculture pilot program, which will invest $700 million specifically to support regenerative agriculture. We will deliver this support through existing programs our farmers already know and already trust. Protecting and improving the health of our soil is critical, not only for the future viability of farmland, but to the future success of American farmers. In order to continue to be the most productive and most efficient growers in the world, we must protect our topsoil from unnecessary erosion and boost the microbiome of the soil. Today's announcement encourages these priorities while supporting farmers to transition to regenerative agriculture if they so choose. This is a Farmers First pilot program and the first of its kind. The pilot brings USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, we have our incredible leaders here, Aubrey Betancourt, back to its core mission, helping people help the land through whole farm, outcome-based voluntary conservation that our producers trust. For too long, our conservation programs have been severely fragmented. This pilot replaces that fragmentation with one unified process that evaluates everything at one time. Whole farm planning is the centerpiece, ensuring that all resource concerns such as soil, water, and natural vitality are addressed together, not one piece at a time. Producers will benefit from a single application, reducing red tape and making conservation easier to access and our programs more impactful. As President Trump has done since day one, we are committed to restoring America's natural strength by empowering producers with simple outcome-based tools. Producers at every stage, from beginners just starting with cover crops to advanced operation with years of conservation experience, many of those are represented by our farmers today, will find a pathway through this pilot. Each producer's results will be measured and credited back to the farmer through an outcomes report, recognizing and rewarding improvements they achieve on their own land. This initiative puts American farmers first as part of the solution to make America healthy again, but by supporting access to American-grown whole foods that are critical to addressing the chronic disease crisis nationwide. Using the Sustains Act, we will bring corporate, label, and supply chain partners directly into partnership with NRCS, supporting regenerative agriculture adoption, farmer recognition, and consumer education. Because success depends on strong partnerships, we will expand work through our technical service providers and local organizations to meet demand. In addition, the Office of Urban Agriculture and Innovative Production, supported by their advisory committee, will extend regenerative priorities into cities and urban areas and urban communities across our great country, again, aligning with the MAHA agenda. And many of those places in our country, as you know, are those that are facing the most severe crisis regarding nutritious foods and access to nutritious foods. This new pilot is about results that last. It will make our farms more productive, our land healthier, and our water cleaner. Again, we're so grateful to everyone for being here. At this point, I'd like to turn it to my great partner in all of this work, Secretary Bobby Kennedy. Thank you all again for being here, and we will be answering questions.
Thank you very much, Secretary Rollins. This is the fulfillment of a promise that we made in the MAHA report. The MAHA report, which we released 2.5 months ago, has 120 recommendations for how to transition, how to eliminate the chronic disease epidemic and transition to a healthier America. And among those promises, among the recommendations of the report, was the promise to make it easier for farmers in this country, to give them an off-ramp. Farmers who are dependent on inputs, on chemical and fertilizer inputs, to give them an off-ramp where they can transition to a model that emphasizes soil health, and with soil health comes nutrient density. And without coercion, through voluntary action, to give them good incentives to do well by doing good for themselves, for our children, and for the country. I'm very, very happy to have as a partner in this endeavor Brooke Rollins. I've been working on farm issues for 30 years, and this is the first USDA secretary who I believe is really committed to giving us, we already have the healthiest food supply in the world, to making a food supply that's even healthier, that's going to sustain, again, a transition to a much healthier America for our children. I also want to thank these farmers who are inspiring, and they're inspiring to the farm community, to all of us who care about good health, about sustainability on the farm, about water retention, about soil retention, about the health of farmers themselves who are concerned about the health of their children from too many chemicals on the land. And they have given us models. Some of these are 5th, 6th, 7th generation farmers, and they've provided us models for how to do this and how to do it in a way that vertically integrates, that preserves profit margins, and that dramatically reduces inputs. So I want to thank, again, Brooke Rollins, Secretary of USDA, for making this happen, for her commitment to making America healthy again. And I'm going to introduce my partner and friend, Mehmet Oz.
They are too humble.
Okay, you were just hearing there from Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and also Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins before him, talking about a new $700 million investment into a program into what is called regenerative agriculture. So for those who are unfamiliar and just here looking up a little bit of information as well, it looks into certain practices, more of a natural approach. So no-till planting, not using or limiting the use of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. What's the connection between that with happening with the agriculture side and with the health side? You kind of heard RFK Jr. speak to it there a little bit in his moment of talking, that they hope that these new practices will help lead to healthier food, removing some of the things that they believe have harmed the health of Americans through the produce that people have been eating over the years. And so that's what their hope is in this. Again, it's a $700 million investment into this practice. Unclear at this point how that money will be distributed, which farmers, which communities, which states will get that. We'll try to look up some information over the course of the next few days, or once a release comes out, maybe we can get that at some point. But we saw that, again, live impact news. This is what we do. Things pop up and we go to it as it happens, and we try to provide some context, at least to put you in the moment as it's going on. Again, we are waiting for press conferences to take place between the Democrats and Republicans in Washington, D.C., notably as we have a very big decision today on defense building. We have the National Defense Authorization Act is set to hit the House floor today after it was moved forward by the Rules Committee yesterday. And this would put a lot of money into our defense, including for those right here in Hampton Roads. I think that's a perfect segue to bring in our speaker here today, our guest. We got Dr. Bob McNabb here from Old Dominion University, who is here to talk economy, talking money for us. And again, thank you so much for being with us here this morning. I mentioned this bill that is going to go before the House here today because you and I were talking about the impact, if passed, that it could have right here in the Hampton Roads community. How could that impact us here in the 757?
Well, remember, there's more than 85,000 active duty service members in the Hampton Roads area. They generate more than $4 to $5 billion in wages every year. So if the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, comes out of the House and the Senate with the base pay increases locked in, those service members would see a base pay increase above 3.5%. Right now, the House has proposed a base pay increase. We'll see if that survives in the Senate. It's more than likely. The real argument about the NDAA is likely going to be in the marginal details. For example, there's a provision right now to limit the Secretary of Defense's travel budget if he does not release the video of boat strikes against suspected drug trafficking boats in Venezuela. That probably will not make it out of the House and into the Senate, and if it makes it into the Senate, probably won't survive there. So a lot of the energy about the NDAA will be expended around the edges rather than the core parts of the budget.
And a big portion of that, or who we're expected to hear from it about that today, is our local Congresswoman Jen Kiggin. She is speaking on this today. She's been a big proponent of this. Okay, let's take a quick second here. Let's kind of bounce back between, because both press conferences have now started. Let's start. We'll start with Chuck Schumer, the senator there. Let's start with the Democrat side, and then we'll come over to the Republicans there.
Whole 2 years of the Senate. We have only 3 weeks away from massive and devastating cliff for millions of Americans. As you will hear from some of our guests here, this is not just sort of an on-paper accounting political thing. This is life and death for people. This is having a decent life or a life where you can hardly cope if you don't get the health care that you need. Congress should have solved this problem months ago. Hakeem Jeffries and I asked the Republican leadership and Donald Trump over and over and over again to sit down and come up with a solution to the crisis. They refused. We were ready. We said, let's negotiate. Let's find a path. Republicans refused to lift a finger. They knew the crisis was coming. But ever since the fight with Hillary Clinton on health care in 1993, the Republican Party has been just intransigent in not helping people, but just helping the special interests, whether it be the drug companies or the insurance companies or hedge funds or whatever else. They just sat there, did nothing. And now the day of reckoning is coming. And it's the day of reckoning for millions of Americans who are going to lose their health care, who are going to have to pay $500 or $1,000. A working family making, say, $60,000, they think they're in decent shape in most parts of the country. But how are they going to afford an additional $10,000 a year? What are they going to cut back on? Their health care, or their food, or their ability to buy some Christmas presents for their kids? So, with just days left on the clock, the clearest, cleanest, easiest, and best path left is the bill what Democrats are proposing. A clean extension of current tax credits. That's it. No poison pills, no gimmicks, just relief. Our bill is the only proposal on either side that has party-wide support on both sides of the Capitol. Democrats are fighting for lower health care costs for the American people. Republicans are fighting with each other. They can't even come up with a plan. So they put in this junk insurance thing, which I'm sure some of my colleagues will talk about, which does absolutely nothing. They're just so embarrassed they have no plan that they put in a really bad plan that is not going to get any support and is loaded with poison pills. What they want to do is send people a one-time check, maybe, if you're lucky, $80 a month. How on earth is $80 a month going to help the people here if their premiums are doubling and tripling because they don't do a thing? They don't change. They don't extend the tax credits by even a day, a minute, an hour. They just don't do it. They're so in the grips of the special interests and of their ideology, which says you're on your own, baby, that they are stuck. Our bill is the only.
Okay, we were just listening to Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer. He is talking about the ACA tax credits and those set to expire here later this month. We are expecting two competing bills on those extensions to take place on the Senate floor tomorrow. Okay, that's what he is speaking to right now. But right now, we do want to go to the Republicans, where we have local Congresswoman Jen Kiggans expected to be speaking about the defense bill we were just talking about moments ago. Let's listen to her.
Amplify peace through strength throughout the world. That part can't be overstated. We've done so much with this administration just to reprioritize peace through strength. That's how we keep peace in the world, is by being that deterrent, by being that strong fighting force, but also taking care of our military families and our men and women in uniform. We did so much good work last Congress with the Quality of Life Task Force, and we continued that work into this year's NDAA. We looked at pay raises. We gave a 3.8% pay raise to our servicemen and women. We looked at housing. We put $1.5 billion back into housing infrastructure improvements. We know that there's a lot of room for improvement there, and I'm thankful that the Secretary of War has prioritized a task force to specifically look at where we are housing our men and women. We looked at child care. We have money specifically dedicated to new child care facilities. We looked at DoD education. We've pressing on DODEA to look at things like no cell phones in schools that are on military installations. There's a lot of money in there for health care that we want to make sure we're providing good health care for our men and women who serve and their families. We put other things in there for licensures to make it easy for providers to be able to serve our military community. And we even looked at things that were making it unifying the accession process, because we heard a lot of challenges with young people who want to serve, that they're being looked at differently for different types of medical history issues. So we changed those things. A lot of meaningful change. One of the things I'm most excited about is how we've prioritized our military Sea Lift Command in the Navy. You know, we don't have as many ships as we probably should, and we're working on that shipbuilding exercise. But in the meantime, I have my military Sea Lift Command folks who are stepping up, who are civilian partners and providing that peace through strength on the seas. And what we left them out a little bit of the discussion with quality of life issues. So we included them back this time. We took out pay caps for military Sea Lift Command pay. We made sure that our military Sea Lift Command members could shop at the commissaries and exchanges. We're protecting our commissaries, making sure that they are available and there for our military families. So a lot of good things to take care of the people who serve, but then also that technology integration piece, the contract awarding, the procurement acquisition reform. We've done many, many good things to the tune of over $900 billion. So it's a privilege to have been a part of the team that put that together. It's a mission that we all share here in Congress on both sides of the aisle of taking care of our military and making sure we remain the greatest in the world. Thank you so much. And with that.
Okay, we were just sitting there and listening from our Congresswoman here, Jen Kiggans, on that defense spending bill, and we're going to get into that way more in just a few moments. Again, things are happening all at the same time right now. We're going to jump right back to Phoenix because we just saw one of the, I don't know if this is a fire official or whatever, the rescue for that stranded hiker is happening as we speak right now. While the Congresswoman was talking, we saw someone come down from a helicopter where this hiker has been stranded in a very difficult portion of this trail on top of a mountain here, at least since some point yesterday in the middle of the day. You can see there that rescue crews have now landed on that large rock there where the person is currently stranded. They are in the white. As we talked about at the top of this stream, they were able to make contact with that person yesterday, but because it was so dark, they couldn't continue with their rescue operations, but they were able to give him a cell phone, some clothes, I believe a blanket as well. And I assume now that they were the ones who marked on the side of that rock there, on the side of that trail. You can see the person just laying there waiting for them to come. We have another person, a part of the rescue team, that is now dropped down onto this structure. Again, this is in Phoenix, Arizona. Not sure exactly how many hours this person has been there, but we know that it was at least 8 o'clock when crews were notified of this person last night that he had been stranded there. Not sure when that individual began their track, but that is the position in which they have found themselves in. And I'm trying to think, what time is it in Phoenix right now? They're 3 hours behind us in the moment, so 2 or 3. So if it's 10:30 here, what time is it? 8:30. So assumingly we know that that person's been stranded for at least 12 hours. You imagine probably a little bit before that, because as our affiliate there in the area has been reporting, they were spotted at one point just by a routine check by a fire department in the area. So you can see there that they have landed near the individual. I assume they're going to get in position to try to get them out. But we'll see. I don't know. I don't know exactly what their movements are going to be, but we wanted to show that to you in the moment as it's happening. They're not necessarily moving closer right now. So, okay, there we go. They're walking closer to them in the moment. All right, here we go. Slowly but surely. Not sure exactly what the next stage will be. Again, if you're tuning in now, this is a live rescue mission in Phoenix, Arizona, of a hiker who has been stranded there now for at least 12 hours on this trail. Unclear exactly how or why that individual is there. Just want to be clear about that, but it does look like those who are in position are talking with the individual, and they are not moving forward right now. Okay. So clearly there's some more information we need to learn about that, Sarah. We're going to keep our eyes, I guess, on it. Just in the meantime, we're going to keep going back in and out of this hiker rescue, but something has caused them to pause in the moment between them landing down there next to where the individual has been stranded and actually going in and getting them. Okay, are they moving? Okay, this person does not seem to be in a rush to be rescued at the moment. Okay, so we're going to keep monitoring this situation, Sarah, but let's come out of it because I'm starting to get some more questions just by what we're seeing about what this situation now looks to be unfolding. Again, it was unclear how and why the individual was there, but there may be something greater in this situation. So we're going to kind of come off of that in the moment and get back to the conversations regarding our economy and some of the stuff that we saw and hearing from our local official there, Congresswoman Jen Kiggins. And also we were hearing from Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer. Okay, so again, we have in our studio here today Bob McNabb, who is here to talk the economy, our nation's finances with Old Dominion University. And we talked about the defense spending bill and what that would mean if it passed and here in Hampton Roads. But you heard the Democratic senator talking about the Affordable Care Act tax subsidies.
Correct.
And that is set to expire by the end of this month. Both Republicans and Democrats, they put together their own plans, and that is set to go before the Senate tomorrow. What would it mean if those subsidies expire when we're talking about affordability, not just healthcare, but here within our local economy?
Well, let's look big picture first. What does this actually mean? These subsidies, or the COVID-era subsidies, are tax credits that are essentially providing a cost break on insurance policies through the ACA or Obamacare marketplace. So if you need coverage in the marketplace, you go there and you see a price, and that price is partially or fully subsidized by the federal government. So if your income is sufficiently low, you actually pay nothing for insurance through the marketplace. What happens is that insurance costs have risen and risen faster than the pace of inflation over the last decade, and especially over the last 5 years. And so the cost of those tax credits has increased since they first came about. Now, those tax credits expire on December 31st. If the tax credits are not extended, that means those subsidies go away and individuals will face significant increases in their monthly premiums through the marketplace. So if you are in your 50s or 60s, you could be looking at increases of $300 to $600 a month or $1,000 a month. Not only that, your deductibles will increase as well. So you can imagine a situation where you're paying $200 to $300 a month for health insurance, and all of a sudden that goes to $800 or $1,000 a month, and your deductible goes from $2,000 to $10,000. Or you're paying nothing with no deductible, and you still pay nothing, but your deductible is now $7,000 because your income is below, for example, $40,000. So how are people going to react? Well, they're going to do what they did before the marketplace. They're going to go without insurance. How does that impact you? Well, a lot of people will say, I have insurance through my employer, I'm on Medicare, that's not going to impact me at all. If people forego preventative health care, when do they seek out health care? When their health conditions deteriorate and they end up in the emergency department. So you sitting at home today may go, I'm covered, this isn't going to affect me, but they'll be showing up more ill in the emergency department. That's the most expensive form of preventative care and treatment, rather than taking care of those problems that are preventable or manageable, like diabetes or heart disease, because of the lack of health care insurance. So across Virginia, here in Hampton Roads, and across the United States, we'll see uninsurance rates increase and increase significantly elsewhere in Virginia. Hampton Roads is kind of unique. We have a large population of military retirees who are covered by TRICARE for life. So our uninsured rates in Hampton Roads tend to be lower than the Virginia average or the national average. But for those people on the marketplace, it will be a big shock.
And it's interesting in this particular situation because those tax credits, they were the pin in between both Republicans and Democrats for the record-breaking shutdown. And we saw really no resolution out of it other than that they would bring it back to a vote, a promise for that, and try to figure out. Now we're finally getting a plan from both sides. Democrats, obviously, they want to extend it as kind of it is right now. Republicans, they want to end the credits, but they want to add money in for the health savings accounts for certain individuals.
Right.
Democrats say they're not going to go for that. Republicans probably are saying they're not going to go for the Democratic plan either. So not sure if they're still going to be able to reach a resolution by the end of this month, but that's what we're looking at right now. But you have, people like Jen Kagans, who's a Republican, who says we got to figure this out because of the reasons that you just stated. But the government shut down. It was resolved, still set a record for the amount of days, 43 days. But again, we could find ourselves in a similar situation come January if, another CR is not passed. Let's focus on what has happened. What impact did that shutdown have long-term, or at least that we're seeing already, on our nation's economy, on our local economy? Are you starting to see a picture of what that kind of did for us here in the area and across the country?
Well, the ironic thing about the shutdown is we can't talk about the impact of the shutdown because the shutdown delayed the release of economic data. So the indicators that would tell us how much it impacted the economy have now either been delayed, modified, or won't be released at all. And that is especially troubling when you think about the overall state of the economy in Virginia and nationally and in Hampton Roads. Prior to the shutdown, we knew that employment was slowing, if not declining, in Hampton Roads in Virginia. We knew the unemployment rate was rising. We knew that inflation had risen to 3.0% in September. Now, we are finding out that we have this extended gap where we're having to rely upon private sources and other sources of data to try and figure out what happened to the economy during the shutdown. We know a couple things. First, for the poorest people in the United States that rely upon SNAP funds, relying on government assistance, that's a financial stressor for them that reverberates throughout the economy, right? If you miss a payment or an unemployment check or something, that tends to impact you more if you have less resources. So we know that in the short term, poverty rates and financial stress will increase for many American households. The good news about the shutdown was that federal workers and military employees were paid in arrears. That is, when the 43-day shutdown was over, they received pay for the time that was missed. However, federal government contractors in many instances who weren't reporting for work weren't paid as well. The larger concern that we have, and what we'll start seeing as the data become available in 2026, is we knew there was tens of thousands of federal civilian workers who took the DOGE, Department of Governmental Efficiency, fork in the road, the early resignation, early retirement. That became effective on 1 October. The same day the federal government shut down. So we actually don't know how many people actually left federal government service. We know for Virginia that almost 9,000 fewer federal civilian employees were employed at August. We suspect that's going to be much greater once the data becomes available, and that's pushing Virginia's unemployment rate towards 4% by the end of the year.
In the case that we do see another situation where we find some form of government stalemate by the end of, this current extension, I know that people don't want it. My question is, can we afford it if another shutdown were even happen?
Well, again, it depends upon the duration of the shutdown. Shutdowns could be like snowstorms. They're inconveniences, and you wake up on Monday morning and the government was shut down over the weekend and it really doesn't bother anybody. Or it's like the last 43-day government shutdown where we had court fights on whether the federal government should pay, for example, SNAP benefits, even though there was a reserve fund set up for government shutdowns to pay SNAP benefits. So those policy discussions and those fights get exacerbated the longer the federal government shutdown occurs. We know from a simple fact is this: federal government shutdowns typically don't save money, they cost money. And you may be going, well, that doesn't make sense. The federal government's not operating. How does it cost money? Well, first of all, you're paying everybody in arrears. So whether they worked or not, they got paid. So you're still paying all the salaries. You also think about all the inconveniences around the shutdown. You may not be a federal civilian worker, but you went to the airport and your TSA line was 2 hours instead of 30 minutes. Your goods got delayed. Your forms didn't get filled out. You couldn't file for unemployment insurance or Medicare benefits, etc. All those frictions build up in the economy and cost the economy significant amounts of money. So in other words, think about it this way. You're just creating inefficiency. That inefficiency costs money, and that's why shutdowns typically cost more than they save.
You know, right now, I do see House Speaker Mike Johnson, who is speaking. If we can just for a few moments take it, because we have way more questions about things that are going on today. I just want to listen to what he's saying right now, and then we'll come in, Sarah, probably in just a few minutes.
Lower your premium 6 months ago, but they refused because they wanted to keep health care as a political football. They do not want a solution. They want an issue. That's what this is about. They used the American taxpayers, they admitted themselves during the longest shutdown in U.S. history a few weeks back, as leverage in this cynical political game. So in the coming days, what you're going to see is the other party, the Republican Party, continuing to do the important work that we've already begun to actually lower the cost of health care and reduce fraud, and we hope Democrats will join us in those efforts. There are two parties in this town. One has no intention and no plan and no desire to lower your health care costs. They really haven't put any good idea on the table. They just want to subsidize a broken system. Check them on that. The Republican Party, on the other hand, is already demonstrating that we know how to do this. We're not just talking about it, we've done it. In the Working Families Tax Cut, you will remember, in the Medicaid reforms, we went after program integrity. We didn't change the substance of Medicaid, as they've claimed falsely. We went to program integrity. Why? Because we owed that to the American taxpayers. We got ineligible recipients off of Medicaid, and we cut out the fraud, waste, and abuse. And the CBO said they've calculated it saved $185 billion for American taxpayers, and it reduced premiums. We reformed it to strengthen Medicaid. Those same principles are going to guide us in the months, in the weeks, the days and weeks and months forward. As Leader Scalise noted, we have some low-hanging fruit. We have some things that every Republican agrees to. Democrats won't. Remember, they don't actually want to fix this problem. But you're going to see a package come together that will be on the floor next week that will actually reduce premiums for 100% of Americans who are on health insurance, not just the 7%. Remember, the COVID-era subsidy only covers 7% of Americans, and it was passed and extended without any reforms at all. It would only reduce their premiums by 4%. So they're using that as a red herring. The overall system is broken, and we're the ones that are going to fix it. You will see that laid out. Thanks to the good work of Chairman Cole and all of our appropriators, we have our appropriations process that will be going forward as well. We're moving those through the regular order process, and that's the way it's supposed to work. So you'll see many of those going through the process, and we think we can get it all wrapped up by the end of that deadline on January 30th. And you'll see that process continue over the days and weeks ahead as well. I would say this again. This Congress has been the most productive and successful in the modern era, and I think you can make an argument, one of the top 5 of all time. You'll have heard me say that. Look at the evidence and the facts. Don't listen to the talking points. This team has delivered with small margins what the American people asked us to do and what we promised we would do. And that work has just begun. It will continue in earnest all the way through the end of this year as we sprint through the end of this calendar year and we start the new session in January. We never take our foot off the gas. So with that, I'll take a few questions. Yeah.
Speaker Johnson, do you intend to advance pro-life provisions in your health care package?
Okay, you're sitting there listening to House Speaker Republican Mike Johnson there, also talking about the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act that we were just talking about, again, set to expire here by the end of the month. And now that is going to be the conversation here within the House and the Senate over the next few weeks, hoping to make some form of decision on what we're going to do moving forward, particularly after that was the situation, the conversation that kept us at bay for the longest government shutdown in history. Okay, I do want to bring back in our speaker here this morning, our guest, Bob McNabb here from Old Dominion University. And you hear the House Speaker there speaking about the tax credits. One thing that I know that stuck out to me, he was talking about the savings that his party is saying people were able to have, and kind of made it seem like it was very minimal for those who were receiving tax credits. The KFF, which is a group that does track a lot of data when it comes to healthcare, they do polling just for anything that has to do with healthcare across our country. They would say if these extensions, along with what you were saying, if they were to expire, it would be so much higher for those who are reliant upon them now. When you kind of hear him saying that the savings were minimum, what they're saying is, like what you were saying, people would see maybe 114% increase in the next year if these tax credits were to expire. So just wanted to note that for sure. Anything else that gleaned out for you?
Well, first of all, you can use data in different ways, right? The speaker can be correct, and the Kaiser Family Foundation that you just referenced could be correct. If I look at the amount of subsidies and I look at the total programmatic cost of insurance in the United States or Obamacare, those subsidies would be a relatively small percentage. However, if I look at the average premium of people on the marketplace, who are a relatively small percentage of the overall health insurance marketplace in the United States, then those subsidies reduce costs significantly. So both are correct, it's just a different perspective. What I'm seeing in terms of the conversation, especially now that we have a draft bill from the Senate that you referenced is going to be voted on tomorrow, and what I suspect will be coming out of the House, is the Senate proposal and likely the House proposal will not be extending the Obamacare subsidies, but a replacement of those subsidies with high deductible plans and health savings accounts. And the problem is that what evidence we have in terms of what used to be called risk pooling, right? We want everybody in the health insurance pool because you have healthy people, you have sicker people, and that on average lowers premiums for the sick people, and maybe the healthiest people pay a little bit more, but you never know. If you're in your 20s, you get in an accident, and all of a sudden you need health insurance, right? So that risk pooling approach is the way to lower that cost of health insurance for everybody. If you move to a model where you allow insurers to peel off the healthiest people, then they can insure those people for relatively low cost, and then you have people who have pre-existing conditions and other health conditions that are a higher cost, and they get stuck in high premium pools. We used to do that before the Affordable Care Act. The problem is we have short memories. People don't seem to remember the time where if you have pre-existing conditions, and I'm not talking cancer, I'm talking asthma, I'm talking, you had acne as a kid, right? You broke a leg, you had a car accident. That became a pre-existing condition and moved you out of that low risk pool to a medium or higher risk pool and changed your deductibles considerably. We have forgotten what that was like. Also, people have forgotten that pre-ACA, we had caps on insurance, that your policy might have been a great policy, but it only covered $1 million in lifetime medical expenses. You get a heart attack or cancer or something traumatic in your life, and all of a sudden you found middle of your hospital stay, you were uninsured and you couldn't pick up insurance anymore. So the devil is in the details, right? High deductible plan coupled with a high health savings account sounds like it can save you money, but the question is, first, how much is the government subsidy flowing into those health savings accounts? Right now, the Senate bill is proposing $1,000 or $2,000 a year. That will nowhere make up for the increase in the marketplace premiums or the deductibles. Let's say they freeze premiums on the marketplace, and I give you $1,000, and all of a sudden your deductible is $7,000 or $10,000. The net doesn't work out. So that really is what's bedeviled a lot of the plans from the Republicans in the past, is that the financial realities of these high deductible accounts or health saving accounts just run up against the rising cost of health care in the United States.
Such great perspective in bringing that in together. And the question for me, and I think for a lot of people now, is going to be, what are they going to decide upon in the next few days and what's going to actually happen with that? But great perspective in this. Okay, we got some other things I want to talk to you about because a lot is just going on right now. We haven't even talked about today. We're expecting to hear from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He's having a meeting earlier. Well, I think, when's it supposed to start here? Is it happening now, Sarah, as we speak?
2:30.
It's 2:30. Well, we're going to hear from him at 2:30, but I think the
2:30
actual
is
meeting,
the announcement.
Yeah, I think the meeting may be going on right now, and he'll speak later on at 2:30. We're expecting to get another cut here for the third month in a row. But there was a word that I keep hearing floated around, and I wanted to ask you about it. And when I see different reports talking about this particular committee meeting, saying that we should expect a, quote, hawkish cut. What does that mean?
So hawkish is used often in the context of, for example, defense spending. That if you're a defense hawk, you want a stronger military, you're more conservative with regards to alliances and how people behave to you. A hawkish monetary policy, in this case, is you're worried about inflation. So remember, the Fed balances two things: price stability and employment. What's been happening with employment? Well, the labor markets have been slowing down nationally. We saw, for example, in the latest ADP private payroll data that 4 out of the last 6 months have had job losses. In Virginia, employers have added jobs for the year, but it's been sporadic. Some months it's contraction, some months it's growth. In Hampton Roads, the same thing. So we know labor markets are weakening. The unemployment rate is up. The people participating in the labor force are down. People reporting they're employed are down. That's one part of the picture. So in that case, the Federal Reserve will typically go, whoa, the economy's getting worse. Divorce themselves from equities markets. Stock market is not the reality. They'll look what's happening and say, people are becoming unemployed, corporate profits are under pressure, small businesses are under pressure, we need to cut interest rates to stimulate economic growth. But they're running up against the problem that headline inflation and inflation without food and energy was 3% in September in our latest report. Again, delayed because of the government shutdown. And so they're going, we've seen inflation creep up in the second half of 2025 because of tariffs. We expect inflation to continue to rise from 3% in the coming months. We're going to have to choose. Do we choose to lower interest rates because the job market is weakening and risk higher inflation, or do we keep interest rates where they are and risk job markets weakening further? And so they have pivoted to job markets. So now your question was, what does hawkish mean? Hawkish means we pivoted the job markets, but inflation is still giving us a problem. Maybe we're just going to have a smaller cut, 25 basis points, 1/4 percentage point, and then take a look at how things are going. Because we're still worried over here that we can make the mistake we made back in 21 and get behind inflation, and then we really have to raise interest rates to clamp down on inflationary expectations.
Meanwhile, you have President Trump, who has been very vocal over the last several months that he wants cuts when it comes to interest rates. But also yesterday, he was giving a speech at a rally in Pennsylvania, and he talked about affordability. And he touted his economic plan, and he says that it is working, asking for more time, and saying that really it was a crisis that he inherited. And the word affordability, I believe, at one point saying, hey, things are getting better. Are the numbers supporting that, for one? And then my second question to that, because you were just talking about what the Fed chair and what we're expecting with the cuts. Is it a plan that we just need to give it more time? Or from your analysis, do there need to be some adjustments?
Well, presidents love to claim economic successes as their own, and economic failures typically are an orphan. And this is not because of President Trump or President Biden or President Obama. This is typically how presidents operate. Good news, that's all me. Bad news, that was somebody else. And what we've seen in the national discourse, especially post-COVID, is that the cost of living has become a significant concern. It's the number one concern for American consumers, time and time again. I was just looking at the data this morning, for example. If we look at the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey, so the University of Michigan, since the 1960s, has been surveying consumers about their perceptions of the economy. Consumers' perceptions of the current state of the economy are the lowest in the history of the survey. That tells you, regardless of what policies are being put into place, Americans are saying, I feel that life is becoming increasingly unaffordable. And I think it boils down to this. In the data, what we are seeing is an 80-20 split of the economy. If you're in the top 20% of households by income, roughly $130,000, your income and consumption have outpaced inflation since COVID. So you are earning more after we account for inflation, and you're spending more after we account for the impacts of inflation. So for you, you own stocks, which are up. You own a house, which is up. You're gotten wage gains faster than inflation. Life feels fairly good. If you're in the bottom 80% of households with incomes below $130,000, your income and your spending has just kept pace with inflation. So what happens is you go into the grocery store, if you're in that category, and you look at prices, and you don't see that prices increased 3% from last year. You see that prices have increased by almost 30% on average since 2019. And you feel much worse about the economy, and you act much worse about the economy. And President Biden struggled with that issue. President Trump is now appearing to struggle with that issue as well. And part of this is the cost of shelter. We're not building enough housing. We haven't built enough housing in the United States to keep up with population growth since the Great Recession of 2007, 2009. But it's also a simple fact. And in economics, we call this salience. How visible are things to you? And if I came to you and I asked, how visible are prices to you? You would probably say, well, I touch prices every day. I go to the Starbucks. I go to the grocery store. I go to grab a burger. I pay for gas. I pay my car payment. I see prices every day. How often do you see your wages? Twice every 2 weeks? Twice a month? Once a month? So you're continuously updating your impression of prices, and you're slowly updating your impression of wages. And that means when you have higher rates of inflation, your perceptions of the economy tend to worsen dramatically.
You and your team at Old Dominion University, you release an outlook and analysis once a year for sure, a big one. That's going to come up, I believe it's next week. Mm-hmm. That's going to take place. Is there any insight that you might be able to provide, a little bit of a teaser for what you all are seeing so far as the state of our economy?
Sure. In October, we released our State of the Region report, which was looking at Hampton Roads. Next week, we'll release our State of the Commonwealth report, which looks at Virginia. And a lot of the themes that I've talked about today, slower job growth, higher unemployment, higher prices, lower consumer sentiment, pervade the report. But also in there is the challenge that waits the new governor and the new General Assembly. And we have to think of it this way. Virginia has run surpluses for the last several fiscal years, which is good news, right? The state has not needed to cut anything. It has sufficient resources to fund infrastructure, education, and other things. But if we look and we do this analysis in the report, we ask a simple question. Which cities and counties are net contributors to the Virginia budget, and which cities and counties are net recipients or takers from the Virginia budget? And not surprisingly, the cities and counties that contribute the most, where people pay the most in taxes and get the least in return from the state government in terms of services, are in Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Hampton Roads. We're subsidizing the remainder of the Virginia, which is okay. I mean, that's a political process and decision. But which cities and counties are the ones most hurt by cuts to federal employment and federal contracts and uncertainty with regards to trade? The counties in Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Hampton Roads, which suggests that the revenues to the state government are going to come under pressure next year. So now is not the time to engage in a lot of new spending. It's probably a time to revisit the core functions of government, right? Invest in K through 12 education. I'm an employee of ODU, so investments in higher education are a good thing also. But what we've seen in Virginia is those returns to education outweigh the spending. Investment in infrastructure, right? There's lots that can be done here in Virginia that can promote economic growth through investment in infrastructure. Let me give you the simple example, punching I-87 through into North Carolina. So we have a transit south out of Hampton Roads. Now, if you want to go to Raleigh, which way do you go first? You got to go west to Emporia, right? And then you go south. Just think of all the potential markets we're missing out of because of the increased transportation costs because we don't have an interstate that leads out of Hampton Roads into the Carolinas, and how much economic development that could occur, much like the I-95 corridor out of Georgia into South Carolina. Because 30 years ago, when you left Atlanta and you're driving northeast Georgia into South Carolina, it was rural agriculture, and then BMW came and put a plant in Green, and people are like, why are you putting a plant in South Carolina near the Georgia border? Nobody's going to go there. Nobody cares. And now you drive it. It's vibrant because you invested in infrastructure and you made the conditions right for economic development.
Remind people again when that report is going to be coming out. I know it's next week, but which day is that going to be?
Right now we're scheduled for Tuesday.
For Tuesday.
And it'll be available online.
Okay. Thank you so much. We got Bob McNabb here who spent time with us this morning breaking down a lot of different topics. And hey, just ahead of the holidays too, where people have gone through their spending. And I did want to say one quick note here with the National Retail Federation. Their prediction, Americans will spend roughly $890 on gifts, food, and decor. That is less than the record that was spent last year at $902 by consumers last year. I imagine some of the conversation that we've been having here today probably playing in a bit on people spending a little bit less on gifts this year for the holidays.
Yeah. If people feel worse about the economy, they become increasingly myopic. I'm nearsighted, and I'll use myself as an example. So when you become nearsighted about the economy, you shift your consumption. You go, well, I don't need that car anymore. I got to pay that off for a longer time. I don't need to go out and buy that big piece of furniture. Or I'm going to shift towards those things that keep me going now and defer those things into the future because I don't know if I'm going to have a job. I don't know if I'm going to get a raise. I don't know my neighbor's going to lose their job. So right now we're seeing conditions for many Americans that look like 2008 in terms of their perception of the economy and the unemployment they're facing. We're not there yet, but you look at that. You look at equity markets and you look at people talking about a bubble in stock markets, the AI bubble, and it has echoes of 2008, and that's a history we do not want to repeat.
No.
And so, but that tells you if people are feeling that, they act like that, and that slows down their spending.
Looking forward to the rest of the report. Again, Dr. Bob McNabb with Old Dominion University, economics professor there. I love every time that you come on, all the insight that you're providing. Variety of topics. At any given time, something can pop up, and here we are. So we appreciate you for coming through. Thank you so much for spending time. I think right now, Sarah, we were just pointing, just as I turned my head, let's go to News 1, Channel 1 at the moment. Okay, we have been talking off the top of the stream, going in and out, that there was a hiker rescue taking place in Phoenix, Arizona. We saw the moments in which rescue crews landed to help get to where that individual is, and now we can see that he is being wheeled down I assume it's a mountain, that hiking trail that that person had been stuck for at least 12 hours. Now, based upon the way in which they kind of moved, we saw when the rescue crews first got to on the top of that, I'll just call it a rock. I'll call it a mountain, whatever. They didn't really go to him right away. So we don't know, again, the circumstances surrounding why this person was there and why they kind of acted in that way. But, right now we know, at least we can see it with our own eyes, as you see all of the various crews with the fire department there in Phoenix, and I'm sure other paramedics are going to be there on the scene too. They are likely very relieved that they were able to get this individual down from that high elevated surface there, in which we know they had been there at least since 8:30 last night, when that report went into the fire department and the police station there in the Phoenix area. Again, you see that person wheeled out as they are likely going to treat them and to make sure that they are okay. And we're glad to at least see this have this ending where that individual is now in the care and in the hands of first responders there in the Phoenix community. Again, we saw it off the top of the stream here. I keep wanting to call it a broadcast, but the top of the stream here, where helicopters were flying around, and you could see that individual kind of sitting down. We know that they were able to bring some blankets and a phone to be able to communicate the night prior, or last night, I should say. So they've been in conversation, at least. And they've been trying to get to that person, but it got too dark, so they had to kind of delay the process yesterday. And so now we pick up today. Again, you're watching the moments where a stranded hiker there in Phoenix was able to be rescued here this morning. So I'm glad to see that happen there in that area. Right now, Sarah, let's do this. I know we have Dr. McNabb want to be able to kind of help him and usher out in the moment, but let's go back, because I don't know what this is right now on News 1 Channel 5, and I've been trying to figure that out. So we'll try to figure that out here in just a moment. We have something that's kind of going in the moment, but for now, let's go back to News 1 Channel 4, where we have the press conference. I do believe, is this still Republican leadership there, or we're looking at Democratic leaders actually now? This is Democratic leaders holding a press conference there in the House. So let's go to that right now. We'll listen to them for just a few moments. We'll come back, and we'll have some more things to talk about.
Representative figures, and thank you so much, Chair Aguilar and Vice Chair Liu, for inviting us today. Across Delaware and around the country, families are being hit from every direction. At the grocery store, at the pharmacy, and of course now in their healthcare premiums. In 2024, Donald Trump promised the American people that he would lower costs on day one. But we all know that whether it's his business partners, people who worked for him, or the American people, the one through line throughout Donald Trump's life is that he has never met a promise that he was not willing to break. Because 1 year into the second Trump presidency, all we have are a litany of broken promises and billionaire tax breaks. This affordability crisis is not a hoax. It is a choice by congressional Republicans and by Donald Trump. A choice to impose a tariff tax on small businesses and consumers. A choice to cut food assistance. And a choice to insert a $1 trillion bomb into the center of the American healthcare system. That bomb is now going off. Premiums are skyrocketing. The largest cut to Medicaid in American history is on the horizon. Rural hospitals and doctors' offices are already closing. Trump Care has arrived, and it is dangerous and it is deadly. I hear it every single day back in Delaware. Dave, a constituent of mine in Newcastle, pays $350 a month right now for his wife's Marketplace plan. Next year, without the ACA tax credits, those premiums will jump to $1,200 a month. His wife lives with a disabling spinal condition, diabetes, hypertension, depression, and takes dozens of daily medications. Without this tax credit, they will lose their coverage that is keeping his wife alive. People like Dave are doing everything right, but Republicans in Congress continue to fail them. it's not too late for my Republican colleagues to do the right thing, to make a different choice. As has been mentioned, we only need 4 Republicans in Congress to demonstrate courage on behalf of their constituents by signing this discharge petition to force an up or down vote on protecting care. But I'm not going to hold my breath, because while we are freshmen, while we are new, what has become abundantly clear to us in the last 11 months is the only thing that congressional Republicans are more loyal to than Donald Trump is to cutting the health care of the American people. Imagine winning those elections, getting all of that power, and spending all of your political capital on kicking millions of people off their coverage and jacking up healthcare prices for everyone else. People deserve so much better than what congressional Republicans and Donald Trump have offered them. I ran for office after my experience as a caregiver to my husband during his battle with terminal cancer. And I simply do not believe that in the wealthiest nation on earth, any American should have to go without the health care that they need to live and thrive. And so long as there is air in our lungs and breath in our bodies, House Democrats will fight for an America where every single American can get the health care they need, regardless of where they live and regardless of who they voted for in the last election. And so with that, I'll turn things back over to Chair Aguilar to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative McBride and Representative Figures. Andrew?
What do you think of Haley Stevens introducing articles of impeachment against Robert Kennedy Jr.?
I think that what Robert Kennedy Jr. has done to the healthcare system, what he stands for, his latest support for decisions that reduce Americans' access to vaccines are deeply troubling from a public health perspective. I understand that members have frustrations and concerns about it. I don't know how successful those measures would be in a Republican-held Congress, but I appreciate that members have a lot of views on this and want to hold the Secretary accountable. He is someone who is an impediment to Americans having health security. I think that's very clear, and the day for accountability will come. I don't know when that is, but the day for accountability for the Secretary and many others of the President's administration will come. We'll see what that looks like, though. Nick?
I want to ask about the NDAA. Do you expect to support final passage of that bill whenever it comes up later today?
We'll see when it comes up. They got to pass the rule first. I think they're having some difficulty with that. If it comes up, well, we've had a caucus conversation this morning. Adam Smith presented the bill to the caucus, and members will make their decisions. I'll wait until the rule passes, and then I'll indicate where I stand on the bill. Yeah.
This NDAA has a provision in there requiring the Department of Defense to release a video of the strike on the Venezuelan boat, particularly their second strike that killed 2 defenseless shipwreck survivors. And if the Pentagon doesn't do that, then the Secretary of Defense's travel budget will be reduced. So you have now bipartisan support to get this video released. And we need to be asking, the American people will be asking, what is Pete Hegseth hiding?
Michael?
President Trump was in Northeast Pennsylvania last night, kicking off what the administration has described as a series of events promoting his economic agenda, his economic policies, pushing back on Democrats' criticism of his role in the affordability crisis. Republicans believe that the more he's out there, the better it is for them and their voters to hear from the president. I wanted to get your thoughts on, do you believe the more that President Trump is out there, that it's advantageous to the case that you all are making about the affordability crisis, given that he's called it a hoax and a con? And just what do you make of the fact that they say that he's going to be out on the road a little bit more, speaking about his agenda and kind of looking to rebut some of the criticisms that you all have waged against him on the affordability crisis?
Sometimes it's a long 16 blocks from Capitol Hill to the White House. Clearly, it's taken the president quite a long time to understand the affordability crisis that we're in. I think the event yesterday was one of the first I've seen that the president wasn't attending a sporting event or something else. But saying that the economy is A+++, calling the affordability crisis a hoax, these are things that the American people just know aren't true. He's lying. House Republicans are lying. They know that. They know that the affordability crisis is at their doorstep. They know it is more difficult to live under the Trump economy than it was previously. And they're holding him accountable. And that's coming through not just in public polling, but it's coming through in our elections. In every election that we've seen, special elections from last night to Iowa months and months ago to everything in between, New Jersey, Virginia, Mississippi, Georgia, I mean, all of these, Republicans continue to underperform because they have no real solutions. They won't solve the affordability crisis. They're only making it worse, and the American people are smart enough to know that. So I don't think that there's anything that the president can do, because clearly every time he gets in front of a microphone, he's saying something that is an outright lie, and the American people know it. So I don't have any problem with him continuing to go out around the country and to talk about this, because the polling clearly shows that folks aren't paying attention and that they know better.
Pete, can I add something? Oh,
yep.
You go ahead.
Sarah, then Ted.
Just a
Okay, today the conversation, you can hear it from the lawmakers there in D.C. You can hear it from us here in our studio here. We just had economic professor from Old Dominion University, Bob McNabb, with a great breakdown for the last hour looking at things. The conversation today seems to be around our nation's economy and even healthcare. With it, you hear healthcare that ties into the economy, the economic aspect of it all, okay? That is really what is top of mind right now for many Americans also, and not just because we're in the holiday season, but you've seen a lot of polling that shows that is top of mind for voters and Americans today. Again, we're also expected today to hear from Fed Reserve Chair Jerome Powell around 2:30 this afternoon after a committee meeting today in which we're expecting to see an interest rate cut for the third straight month. So, of course, we'll be interested to hear from him, and that should take place during our next stream between 1 and 3 p.m. Again, 2:30 is when we're expecting that to take place. But we want to get to North Carolina right now. Again, the economy is a big thing when it comes to money. Well, money is used for people to afford health care. And in North Carolina, they have a very big issue surrounding Medicaid right now. And today, the North Carolina governor, Josh Stein, made an announcement about Medicaid, particularly the reimbursement rate reductions that he initiated 2 months ago. We're hearing that he has now canceled those rate reductions as a way to help people get short-term access to care who are vulnerable patients, right? All of this while there's a major political fight taking place between Democrats and Republicans around funding for Medicaid, which right now, with their latest stopgap bill that was passed back in the summer, if you recall, well, it's more than $300 million short when it comes to Medicaid funding that gives that needed access to care for people there in North Carolina. So, okay, now we've had it queued up. Let's listen to the governor's announcement there in North Carolina that just took place about an hour or so ago.
Secretary of Health and Human Services, Dev Sangvi, Dr. Frankie Simmons, President of the North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians, Margaret Weller Stargell, who is CEO of Coastal Horizons, and Lisa Poteet, CEO of the ARC of North Carolina, and the many providers, advocates, and legislators who are here joining us today. Medicaid is a lifeline for the more than 3 million North Carolinians across the state. Medicaid serves 1 and 4 million North Carolinians. It is the difference for those people between being able to go to a doctor's office to get better and being denied critical care because it is too expensive. For months, the General Assembly has failed to fully fund Medicaid, forcing cuts to provider rates and leaving people and providers stressed and vulnerable. The legislature's continued inaction left healthcare providers with few options, so impacted families and providers took legal action. And the result of those court cases have led us to today. North Carolina is now restoring provider rates to their September 30 levels, the rates before the cuts were enacted, so that patients can continue to receive the care that they need and deserve. So what happened? What changed? I'll talk about that, but first, some necessary context. For 6 months, the General Assembly was warned by DHHS time and time again about the impending Medicaid funding shortfall, and then without more funding, the legislature would force substantial rate cuts onto healthcare providers. What was incredibly frustrating was that both chambers in the legislature agreed that more funding was necessary. They even agreed on the amount of money that was necessary. But they failed to act in August, they failed to act in September, they failed to act in October, and they failed to act in November. Instead of providing the funding that both chambers knew was necessary, they allowed unrelated budget disputes to get in the way of doing their jobs. Their failure forced these cuts, which are causing real and damaging impacts on people's health and well-being. Their failure is irresponsible and callous, and it's infuriating because all of this was absolutely unnecessary. All they had to do was their most basic and important job: pass a budget. Understand that only one state's legislature in this entire country has not enacted a budget. That's North Carolina's. Just as the General Assembly's failure to act forced not only DHHS's hands on rates, it forced patients and providers. A number of them have taken legal action to protect patients. In the first two cases, courts have ruled for the patients. 3 more cases have already been filed, with even more waiting in the wings. DHHS can read the writing on the wall. So the department is restoring all provider rates to where they were on September 30th before the cuts took place. That's what's changed. Here's what has not changed. Medicaid still does not have enough money to get through the rest of the budget year. And that is even clearer now that we're nearly 6 months into this fiscal year, and we can see how Medicaid spending is actually tracking. Without additional funds, Medicaid will run out of money in the spring, which would be absolutely devastating, not only to Medicaid patients, but to the entirety of our healthcare system. Secretary Sangvi will speak to some of those consequences, which we cannot allow to happen. Everyone here and the 3 million North Carolina Medicaid recipients and their families are counting on the General Assembly to step up and fully fund Medicaid. Legislators have said over and over that they will fund Medicaid. It's time to stop talking about funding Medicaid. It is time to start funding Medicaid. It's not about politics. It's about saving people's lives. I urge the General Assembly, come back to Raleigh and do your job. Make Medicaid whole, pass a budget, and join us in standing up for people's health care. I'll now invite forward Secretary Sangvi.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. It's great to stand shoulder to shoulder with many friends and colleagues around this important issue. My top priority since taking this job was to increase access and ensure that everyone can have access to quality, affordable care here in North Carolina when they need it. And without additional funding from the General Assembly, this priority in the entire Medicaid program is at risk. Our projections show, as the Governor outlined, that Medicaid will run out of money before the end of the fiscal year. And because Medicaid is such a critical part of North Carolina's system of care, it's going to impact everyone. The entire state is at risk. Without full funding, vulnerable North Carolinians, children, seniors, veterans, people with disabilities could lose access to care that they rely on. We face the prospect of further destabilizing our healthcare system with devastating financial strain on providers. I want to be clear about what's at stake if Medicaid isn't fully funded. Services could be eliminated. Providers could be left waiting for payments that may never come. Clinics and practices, especially those in rural areas where so many residents rely on Medicaid, could be forced to lay off staff and stop serving patients or simply close their doors altogether. When funds run low, providers may have no choice but to limit the number of Medicaid patients they can see, stop accepting new patients, or shut down entirely, disrupting care or decreasing access for people who need it most. For many, Medicaid is more than a program. It is a lifeline. It provides affordable health coverage to more than 1 in 4 people in our state, including those who often face serious barriers like chronic illness, mental health challenges, unstable housing, or limited access to transportation. Cutting off access to care means halting access to doctors, behavioral health services, and prescription drugs for more than 3 million people, older adults, people with disabilities, and hardworking North Carolinians. Rural communities will be hit the hardest if Medicaid funding is not restored. In several rural counties, more than half of the population is covered by Medicaid. And the consequences go beyond health care. Medicaid contributes more than $30 billion to the North Carolina economy. It helps keep rural hospitals open and strengthens the financial stability of providers across the state. North Carolina has worked hard for years to build a fiscally responsible, high-performing Medicaid program, one that is the envy of every state in the nation. And everyone agrees that more funding is needed to keep it whole. There is simply no debate on that issue. Underfunding this program can have serious consequences and put at risk many people in North Carolina. Right now, we need the General Assembly to fund Medicaid in the best interest of our state's health. Let's do what's right and ensure that Medicaid continues to support the health and well-being of everyone in North Carolina. Thank you. I'm now going to turn things over to Dr. Simmons, who can give you a better explanation of what the real impact is on providers.
Okay, you were listening there to a press conference just an hour ago from North Carolina Governor Josh Stein and other leaders there in the state talking about Medicaid. And again, the big thing that comes out of the announcement here this morning is that the governor is going to cancel those reimbursement rate reductions that he put in place 2 months ago, at the time saying that it was something that was necessary just because of the ginormous amount of money in terms of what they don't have there in the state in order to provide within this particular service. But they want to help protect, give that short-term access to care to vulnerable patients there in the state, all while they're in this major political fight, Democrats and Republicans there. And Sarah, you remember it wasn't long ago that the governor was calling for a special meeting around this topic because they were not able to reach any kind of conclusion when they reached that short-term gap funding bill in the summer. Again, $319 million. I do believe that's the number for the shortfall there in North Carolina. Medicaid continues to be a situation of an issue there in the Tar Heel State, and we'll continue to keep up with what the latest developments are there. But you heard the governor calling on lawmakers to come back to the table to figure out a solution. And of course, we'll see if and when that takes place there in North Carolina. I do want to mention, since we're on the conversation of politics, a major endorsement took place, I guess, here in Virginia today. The governor-elect, Abigail Spanberger, says that she is endorsing former Congresswoman Elaine Luria for a chance to get her seat back. Luria, of course, entered into the race as a Democrat for Virginia's 2nd Congressional District, currently held by Congresswoman Jen Kiggans. That is in the Virginia Beach area here for the U.S. House of Representatives. We heard from Kiggans earlier today as she was pushing for the defense spending bill that she's been a major advocate for there in Washington, D.C. And those two right now, it does appear, could be the early front runners for a rematch for that seat, as Kiggans actually unseated Luria back in 2022 for her first term. Now she's gone on for 2 terms at this and going for a chance of a third. Now, Luria is not the only person in the Democratic side who has put her name into that race. There are several others. However, we've already seen some of those who have stepped out of the race and even endorsed Luria. One of the people who suspended their campaign even yesterday was James Ossoff. We reported that on this stream just yesterday with that news, or earlier this week. I'm sorry. Days are kind of coming in together right now, Sarah. But we're starting to see some of the candidates on the Democratic side for this major midterm start to pull out of the race, as Luria has put her name in, and she's already getting major support, including that of Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger. Now, we do have some sound, I do believe, from Luria when she first decided to announce. So let's go ahead and play what she said, kind of drew her back into the race 2 terms after losing the same seat.
Bothers me that someone who's a nurse and a healthcare provider would go to Washington and actually vote for legislation that was actually the largest cut to Medicaid that we've seen ever. The Republican Congress voted in lockstep. I mean, she had the opportunity to stand up and say that, you know, I've been a nurse. I care about people having, the most vulnerable people on Medicaid having access to health care. But she hasn't done that.
Of course, Luria there is talking about what was formerly kind of discussed as the Big Beautiful Bill, in which there were cuts to Medicaid across the country there. But Jen Kiggans, who she's talking about specifically in that clip, because I do not believe that she named her, but Congresswoman Jen Kiggans, she also spoke about her upcoming quest to be reelected for this seat. So let's listen to her.
I will tell you one thing when it comes to the midterm elections. People in Virginia's 2nd District have no interest in returning to the failed policies of the Biden administration and Nancy Pelosi, and they have no interest in returning to skyrocketing inflation, to wide open borders, to the weakness on the world stage.
So obviously she believes that she should retain this seat and to be reelected as well. And we were talking not only about the defense spending bill, but we were also talking about Affordable Care Act, those tax subsidies set to expire. Kiggans is one of the Republicans who, during the government shutdown, wrote a letter to the administration and to other Republican leaders saying, hey, we got to figure this out because it will impact not only people across the country, but particularly in my district. And so she has been pushing on that side as well. So you can already kind of see the layout moving forward here within the Hampton Roads area between these 2 candidates. Again, the 2 who have been in this seat, right? Luria a few years ago, unseated by Kiggans, who's in it right now. Healthcare economy will be 2 major conversations for this midterm election. But again, we're not even at the primary yet for this very important midterm. So there are still other Democrats who are in this race. So we don't want to crown anyone at that point. But again, a major endorsement today to get the governor-elect of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, to endorse Elaine Luria for a chance for Luria to regain her seat. And again, right now, the only person I see running in that Republican side is the incumbent, Jen Kiggans. So we'll see if those 2 are the ones having a bit of a rematch come time for the 2026 midterm elections. Wanted to get that out there. Sarah, what are you saying? Okay, is this a statement that we have? Okay, we got a statement. I'll go ahead and read that too from Abigail Spanberger. Thanks for pointing that out, Sarah. She says she's excited to support Elaine Luria's campaign for Congress because Virginians deserve a dedicated public servant who is focused on delivering for the people of Hampton Roads and the Eastern Shore. Speaking of Luria, she says as a 20-year Navy veteran and an incredibly effective member of Congress, Elaine has a proven track record. In Congress, Elaine will focus on lowering costs, providing economic opportunity, and improving the quality of life for the people of coastal Virginia. So you see there in that statement, again, we were talking about healthcare, we were talking about the economy. It's a big thing that's going to go into this conversation between these 2 Navy veterans, particularly that we're looking at could have a rematch for the 2026 midterm. We do have a statement also from Elaine Luria upon receiving this endorsement from the governor-elect. She says she's honored to receive it from her friend, Abigail Spanberger. Since our first campaign together when we made history in 2018, Governor-elect Spanberger and I have worked closely together to lower prices, cut health care costs, and invest in Virginia. She says she looks forward to continuing the work together to lower costs for working families and deliver for the people of Hampton Roads. That's coming from Elaine Loria, again, candidate on the Democratic side for the 2nd Congressional District here in Virginia. So that is the latest news out of that race, and surely we'll see how it all pairs out. But it does appear right now, Sarah, good chance these two could see each other again come the 2026 midterm. All right, I think with that, Sarah, what time we got? 11:36 right now. So, the situation, did we determine for News 1 Channel 5 exactly what we have here? Before we go to it, I just wanted to make sure if the feed is working well or if the announcement is good right now. So, okay. So we'll hold off on that for right now. But what we will do, since we just kind of talked about this race that involves a seat currently held by Republican Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, let's hear from her. Just about a little under an hour, maybe over an hour ago, she was standing alongside other Republican leaders in the House who are calling on the passing of a defense spending bill that would, as we heard from our guest here today, Dr. Bob McNabb, economics professor at ODU, would significantly impact people here in Hampton Roads because it would provide a pay raise for our military men and women. So let's listen to Kiggins and what she said from the podium just, again, about an hour ago about this defense spending bill and what she hopes moves forward.
Thank you. Well, good morning. I'm Congresswoman Jen Kiggins, and I proudly represent Virginia's 2nd Congressional District. I'm also a Navy veteran, former helicopter pilot, a Navy spouse, and now a proud Navy mom. So it's certainly a privilege to be here today to talk about this year's National Defense Authorization Act, which should see a vote on the floor today. This is over $900 billion of money that we can send to our warfighters and to our military families. There's a large chunk of that's dedicated to ships, submarines, aircraft, the actual warfighting resources and tools that we need to just exemplify peace through strength throughout the world. That part can't be overstated. We've done so much with this administration just to reprioritize peace through strength. That's how we keep peace in the world, is by being that deterrent, by being that strong fighting force, but also taking care of our military families and our men and women in uniform. We did so much good work last Congress with the Quality of Life Task Force, and we continued that work into this year's NDAA. We looked at pay raises. We gave a 3.8% pay raise to our servicemen and women. We looked at housing. We put $1.5 billion back into housing infrastructure improvements. We know that there's a lot of room for improvement there, and I'm thankful that the Secretary of War has prioritized a task force to specifically look at where we are housing our men and women. We looked at child care. We have money specifically dedicated to new child care facilities. We looked at DoD education. We're pressing on DODEA to look at things like no cell phones in schools that are on military installations. There's a lot of money in there for health care that we want to make sure we're providing good health care for our men and women who serve and their families. We put other things in there for licensures to make it easy for providers to be able to serve our military community. And we even looked at things that were making it unifying the accession process, because we heard a lot of challenges with young people who want to serve, that they're being looked at differently for different types of medical history issues. So we changed those things. A lot of meaningful change. One of the things I'm most excited about is how we prioritize our military Sea Lift Command. In the Navy, we don't have as many ships as we probably should, and we're working on that shipbuilding exercise. But in the meantime, I have my military Sea Lift Command folks who are stepping up, who are civilian partners and providing that peace through strength on the seas. And we left them out a little bit of the discussion with quality of life issues, so we included them back this time. We took out pay caps for military Sea Lift Command pay. We made sure that our military Sea Lift Command members could shop at the commissaries and exchanges. We're protecting our commissaries, making sure that they are available and there for our military families. So a lot of good things to take care of the people who serve, but then also that technology integration piece, the contract awarding, the procurement acquisition reform. We've done many good things to the tune of over $900 billion. So it's a privilege to have been a part of the team that put that together. It's a mission that we all share here in Congress on both sides of the aisle of taking care of our military and making sure we remain the greatest in the world. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's Jen Kagan speaking today from Washington, D.C. about the defense spending bill there that, again, she kind of laid out what the impact would be. And, again, we had Dr. McNabb, economics professor, Old Dominion University, sharing just how much from an economic boost that might be here in Hampton Roads, since we have so many military men and women here, and that obviously would help if they get raises, the spending here within the economy locally. That would be a huge boost, as we would predict. And it's an important thing, as we were talking with them as we're approaching the holidays. So far, it looks like from the National Retail Federation that Americans are going to be spending less this year when it comes to gifts, food, and decor. The average spending right now looks to be about $890. I don't think I will be hitting that, Sarah, personally. Don't know what your plans are, but I won't. But that's the average from the National Retail Federation that puts this report out every single year. But that is a little under $15 less than a record that was set last year by consumers at $902. And most of that money, they say, is going to be spent on presents. Okay, so again, I bring that up just because of economy, spending, a lot of that flowing into it. But, one thing that is going to happen, people are certainly going to travel, Sarah. And so we do have a new outlook from AAA for the holidays that is predicting year-end holiday travel will break records. So I guess people will save on the gifts, but they're just going to hit their cars and the flights and get somewhere instead of buying a gift for somebody. I don't know how it all works. People have their different reasons. But this is what AAA is saying. They're saying 122 million Americans are expected to travel at least 50 miles, including more than 3 million Virginians between December 20th and January 1st. And that is actually up 2% from last year, which also set a new record. One of maybe the differences here, we're saying that most Americans, 109 million, are going to be traveling by car, with around 8 million who will fly to their destination. So, Sarah, we have the list here of top 10 holiday destinations, and let's see if we can go list through them a little bit. Sarah, you got to participate with me when you see something you're like, I could see that one there. All right, so top 10 domestic holiday destinations that we're seeing here within the country. Florida has 4 of them. Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and Tampa. Not really a shocker there.
Not surprising.
Not at all.
I already know what's on the list, so because I put it together. But I would say, spoiler alert, it's all places that are warmer than here.
All places that are warmer, and probably places you can catch a cheap flight. I think about all those areas, at least from where we are here in Norfolk, Virginia, and those flights are so inexpensive flying straight here from ORF, our Norfolk International Airport. But another place in the top 10, Los Angeles, California. Hawaii has 2, has Honolulu and Maui. I'm a little surprised by that. I'm not going to lie to you. Just a little bit. I mean, I know it's warm, but man, it costs $1 to get to Hawaii, man. Anyway. New York City is on the list, of course. That's, you think about the holidays, you think about the ball drop. New York City is there. Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, okay, and Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. People wanted to spend their holiday at the slots. Top 10 international holiday destinations. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I like this list. This is Mexico. You got Cancun, Cozumel, and Puerto Vallarta. Why am I saying that wrong? I think I said that right.
I think that's right.
I think that's right. All right, if you hear me say it, please don't Don't be too upset. But we got Cancun, Cozumel, and then Puerto Vallarta. And then we have Punta Cana in the Dominican Republic, San Jose in Costa Rica, San Juan in Puerto Rico, which if you are in Norfolk, Virginia, or you like to fly out of Norfolk, Virginia, you want to get someone a gift, they have new direct flights from ORF to San Juan that's going to start in March. I can tell you right now, I will be getting on one of those flights. We have Nassau, Bahamas, Rome, Italy, Aruba, and Sydney, Australia. Okay.
That's far.
Yeah, for the holidays.
You thought Hawaii was far?
Yeah, out of all of those, Sydney, Australia is the one where I'm like, that's in the, I would not expect that to be in the top 10.
Yeah.
Because of the distance. Again, because of the price.
The least surprising part of that is the fact that Orlando is the #1 in the U.S. Because I feel like a lot of people take advantage of winter break to go down there for Disney.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that when I was a kid. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
So you have your own kind of memory with that for the holiday season.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay. I'm not mad at it. Listen, you know me. I am the king of a quick weekend flight and come back, right? And so, but the international flights, I'm just sitting there looking at some of the places, and a lot of them are on my hope list. Like I really am looking forward to, even before Norfolk added that flight to go to San Juan.
Oh, I would love to take advantage of that as well.
Well, from the flight standpoint, even before this direct flight, I mean, just because I was recently looking at this, everybody, but I could find a round trip there for like $210, you know, and I can tell you there are some other cities that I've looked at flying out of Norfolk or flying here regionally to try to get to that costs way more than that for a round trip to get, you know, literally crossing water to go into Puerto Rico. So, you know, something that's really cool there that's on the list. And Aruba's always been on my list. And I thought about last year when I went to Europe, stopping in Italy as a part of that. I didn't go. So, you know, Rome being on the list, a lot of these I can see people wanting to use as their holiday destinations for sure.
Rome, to me, that was a little random, but then I was thinking about it and I was like, well, the Pope is there.
Pope?
Yeah.
You know?
It's Christmas.
I mean, it kind of just flows in for sure when you think about it from that standpoint. But, you know, we did say most people aren't even going to be flying, right? There's going to be 8 million people, which, yes, sounds like a lot until you realize 109 million are going to be driving to their destination. And because of that, gas prices, that's a huge, huge thing, right? Okay, so let's see here now. We have the national average dipped below $3 per gallon for the first time in 4 years, Sarah. That is incredible. It's currently, as you see it there, $2.94 a gallon. In Virginia, we're lower than that. We're at $2.84. Hampton Roads around that at $2.85. And in North Carolina, $2.82. And so a lot of people are going to be doing that. Okay, Sarah, I know we're just kind of pinballing, but I see something that I know I have personal interest in right now, and maybe others might find it interesting. Can we pull up TVU 14 and CNN? I'll set it up. So right now, a major story in the sports world. What do you think about a 44-year-old quarterback who hasn't played football in more than 5 years in a National Football League, who is an actual grandfather for his adult children, lacing them up again to play for a team? Well, that is what it looks like is going to happen with star quarterback Philip Rivers, who probably is most famously known for playing for many years for the San Diego, now Los Angeles Chargers. Philip Rivers is re-signing with the Indianapolis Colts because they have a quarterback problem. Their star quarterback right now with Daniel Jones is out for the season. Their backups are all hurt as well. So Philip Rivers, at the ripe young age of 44 years old, is lacing them back up to try to help the Colts complete what has so far been a phenomenal season, one of the best seasons they've had in years, leading their division, And I know I have special interest in it, not just because he's a 44-year-old quarterback coming back after 5 years. My father played for 14 years with the Indianapolis Colts, and I think a lot of people might be curious to hear from Phillip Rivers. So let's see what he's saying right now as he already has on the gear.
Oh, I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Is he on the practice team, or is he actually going to be?
I believe he's probably going to be playing. They haven't announced who's going to be starting, but he's on the, just put it on the team. Welcome him to the team because they don't have anybody else. I think they have one guy who's on the practice squad right now, but I would imagine that Phillip Rivers is going to be playing maybe come Sunday, if not next week. Wow. So we'll see. Yeah. Let's listen to what he says.
Mentioned too, I talked to or texted with Daniel about him being so gracious about 17. You know, that was certainly meaningful to me. You know, and obviously didn't want it to be like this again, and didn't ever think of anything like all this. All this happened so fast, but him being gracious and saying, "Shoot, heck yeah, you know, go for it." But but he was having a heck of a year. Obviously, the injuries, you know, in the last few weeks, and then the crazy injury on Sunday. I will say. When that happened, I mean, I kind of just, in my mind, I was like, what in the world? I was like, you know, just kind of how crazy it's been with the quarterback position. And I have to admit, I thought, well, I wonder if Shane will call later, you know. But kind of thinking, I don't know, you know. And so it was one of those deals. I was like, shoot, you know, you immediately, the competitor in you, and you get kind of excited, like, man, shoot, are you serious, you know? And I was like, well, we'll see, you know. And then Monday morning it kind of sped up a little bit, and I just said, well, I got to get up there and throw. It's one thing if I, you know, throw the ball here in this out back and to a stationary target, and it feels pretty good. But maybe y'all look at it and say, you know. So I was like, I want y'all to be honest. Let me just get up there, and so that went well on Monday afternoon. Again, I know Routes on Air is not playing the position on a Sunday afternoon. I do know that, but. I don't have any reservation in going out there and Routes on Air and doing that stuff. It still feels good. Obviously, some of the football movements and the things you can't simulate in a game, absolutely, I have not done, and I don't think you can do them in any other way but being in the game. So, again, we're going to take it one day at a time. I'm excited. I feel good. It's also very comforting to know the offense. And you know, that's a big deal. You know, to be able to see that call sheet on Tuesday morning and be able to know what every play is. But a few tweaks here and there that they've done over the years. So that's a big part of it as well.
Hey, Phillip, I assume this is a family decision. What did your family react to this when you thought about even considering?
Yeah, well, I think like all of us, even me, I mean, you're a little scared, a little nervous. I mean, all the above, all the any adjective you can throw in there that's a synonym with those. But excited, you know, excited. I mean, I think, you know, my wife's been my biggest fan the whole time I've played, and she's nervous about the physical aspect of it, you know, as you would expect any wife to. Shoot, I mean, for 250 games or whatever it was, that was a risk, you know, as you see every week. Whether you're 24 and in the best shape of your life, or whether you're 44 and you know, not so sure, you know, anything can happen. So that has never been a concern of mine. And you know, you never hope something like that, right, or expect something like that to happen. But shoot, something like that happens. I got a long time to recover, so that's for sure. But no, they've been very supportive. You know, I think my younger children are most excited. I shouldn't say most excited. They're excited because they don't remember Dad playing. You know, my 6-year-old actually asked me like 4 months ago, like, Dad, why don't you play anymore? And I'm like, hon, I'm sorry. Best you're going to get is me coaching on the sideline, you know, because they were seeing, you know, a highlight or they're pulling up some, you know, old games. My boys are fired up, obviously, but I think share the same sentiment. A little nervous, like, Dad, you think you can do it, you know? And then my older girls are real excited because they're a little bit confused. They're like, shoot, I was 12. You know, some of them, you know, now all of a sudden they're grown adults, married, and they remember 16 years old going to the ball game. So it's been a whirlwind of 48 hours, I'll say. But each moment that goes by, I feel more and more confident. I really do. I think for me, the decision wasn't easy. And because of all the things that you all can imagine, there's human nature to have a little doubt, you know. And I think for me, working through that was, well, that's normal. You know, that's normal to have a little doubt. who wouldn't have doubt after 5 years? But where's that? Is that doubt real or not? And it's like, well, let's again, like I go back to our first answer. The only way you can find out is to go. And so I've been excited. The guys I've talked to too. And again, we're taking this thing one day at a time. But I'm not here to stick and save the year or be a hero by any means. We got to stick and run the crap out of the football and play defense and do all those things. So if that comes to be, and I'm the one that's out there, I'm not here to try to save the day. I'm going to know where I'm limited, and as we go, it will get better if that's the route that we end up going. But again, full confidence in Shane and Chris and the organization in making those decisions as we move forward each and every day.
What are your conversations, your initial reaction getting the call from Chris and Shane, and what would you say were some of the biggest reservations that you had of any doubt with the 40 hours?
Yeah, well, I think I touched on that again. I mean, I think, the easiest way to eliminate all the things that can go bad is to stay home. And the only way to find out can you still do it is to go try. And I really try to keep it that simple. And so, again, I don't have any concern from the neck up, and I don't have any concern of making a throw. But again, the game's not routes on air. But I'm excited. It feels good to have teammates that I played with. I've been in the huddle with JT. I've been in the huddle with Quentin. I've been in the huddle with Pitt and Mo and these guys. I've been in there with them. And so something about that feels like, crap, has it been 5 years? Like, dang, everything feels the same. And, again, I'm not naive to the challenge that's ahead at all. But I keep saying keep it that simple. I'm trying to keep it that simple, and I know that the NFL is a big deal and it can be whatever it can be. But to me, it's like, hey, you get to play football potentially for 4 more weeks and maybe then some. And as long as I can live with the results, both good or bad, and go back home and move on, then I was willing to go for it. And I was able to get to that place mentally.
Well, just we're getting close to practice. So Steven, Greg, and then JJ, and then we got to get out to practice. So.
Okay, when you were here in 2020, things were kind of unresolved, I guess, at the end of the year. Not on your part on the team. Were you at peace with retiring at that point, or were you still, if the door was wide open, would you have walked through it?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. In my gut, I think the door was going to be wide open. Okay. I really do. I mean, Chris was very upfront, and they were like, "Hey, we're going to evaluate everything." But it felt good. I was at peace. I remember where I was walking on one of these awesome trails, that I got to know during that COVID year, somewhere up north, and when I called Frank, and it was just right. I just knew it.
So you hear Philip Rivers talking about his decision to suit it up one more time as he is speaking to reporters there in Indianapolis, preparing to put on the Colts uniform again after he spent one season with them back in 2020 after 16 years in San Diego with the Chargers. He is one of the most accomplished quarterbacks in the history of the league, but the man is 44 years old and hasn't played football in 5 years, and it's a very, very just different circumstance that is surrounding this as he talks about even talking to his kids who weren't really even, some of them weren't born. He has a lot of kids, but they weren't born yet. Some of his older ones, now one I think is married and has a child. But some of the things I think are really interesting as we wrap this up. Again, the Colts circumstance, it was a really great start to the year. I think I said earlier that they were leading the division. That's it. They were leading, but they've lost 4 out of the last 5 games, and so now they're third in the division, but still 8-5. So still a great chance to make some moves here in the last push of the NFL season. Their star quarterback is hurt. Their backup quarterbacks, all of them are hurt, leading to this moment. But Philip Rivers was a finalist for the Hall of Fame, or a semifinalist this year, Sarah. If he comes from the practice squad and actually suits up and plays and becomes active, you have to be 5 years removed from playing to be considered for the Hall of Fame. So this is a risk on that for him. If he becomes active and suits up, then that clock starts over. So it now would have to be reset for 5 years for him to be in the Hall of Fame. And so a lot of interesting storylines with this, but I think just the fact of seeing a guy 44 years old potentially lacing it back up after spending 5 years off the field, interested to see if and what that looks like. All right, everybody, thank you so much for sticking with us here for Live Impact News. If you've been watching us on YouTube, remember, this is a great moment that you can download 13 News Now Plus, that's our streaming app. And you can find not only this show, but all of our newscasts and other great content at any time, just from your fingertips on your television. We will be right back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. But next, you got 13 News Now at noon with Marta Berglund. On behalf of myself and Sarah Calloway, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.